Hey everyone, this is Derrick Broze with the Conscious Resistance Network, and today we are going to talk about Iran. But first, I want to remind you guys to bookmark theconsciousresistance.com, which is our website, which is where you can find all of our latest content and everything we're working on. And you can follow us on minds.com, Steemit, Discord, join our text list, follow us, support us on Patreon. You can get a free ounce of kratom and get some CBD through our partners, My Brave Botanicals, and all of that good stuff. And if you want to get books and shirts to support our efforts, you can continue to do that so we can stay alive here and keep bringing you important information. As I've stressed before, not just the same old news you're hearing from these other outlets that just yell and scream at you and give you the same mainstream news, but maybe from a slightly different perspective. I'm trying to dive deeper. And with that in mind, you may have heard that Iran is accused of attacking a Japanese tanker in the Gulf of Oman. This has been all over the mainstream news the past few days, and maybe you're saying, oh, I've already heard about this on my other YouTube subscriptions, Derrick. You're a little bit late. But for those who follow my work and know that I don't like to rush just straight to the story, so I don't need to be the first one to talk about it. I just have to make sure that I'm right and that we're bringing you valuable information. So I waited over the weekend to see how this story developed, and sure enough, well, we had it all over the mainstream media. You got CNN the other day on Friday, I believe, was doing just update, every couple minutes, here's what's happening. They wanted this to be everything people were paying attention to. Now, the long and short of it is this. Over the last couple of months, Iran has been accused of attacking at least 4 different oil tankers. Most recently, this Japanese oil tanker here in the Gulf of Oman. So the U.S. government, of course, the Saudi government and Israeli and the compliant European nations are basically following the line here and saying that on Thursday, when this oil tanker was attacked, that it was done by Iranian officials, Iranian military, and they have this grainy black and white video showing what they claim is, Iranian, a boat pulling up to remove an undetonated mine. So, this is just, it seems to fit the Western narrative just too perfectly. Here's a little video. So let me just play this for you real quick. The U.S. military released this video, which it says implicates Iran. And so they're basically saying this appears to show an Iranian Navy ship removing an unexploded boat. So conveniently enough, Iran apparently tried to blow up this ship, this oil tanker. And then some of the mines they used didn't go off. So they had to come back to the scene of the crime. And wouldn't you know it, the U.S. caught them on camera. And you see this, the boats were, let's go back because that's going to be an important little point here. The boats were hit at or below the waterline in close proximity to the engine room, according to the International Association of Independent Tanker Owners. And so this video right here is, at least the U.S. Department of Defense is claiming that's what it was, that it's evidence of Iranian involvement and that they are trying to remove mines that didn't explode. The Iranian mission to the UN rejected this U.S. claim, of course. And when you do a little search of the Google CIA search engine, you're going to see this all over the place. Just more propaganda about Iran trying to get nuclear weapons, Iran exploding this oil tanker, Secretary of State Pompeo, who's been pushing for war. And I should remind you, recently, the video is coming out showing him admitting to lying, his role in the government being a position of lying and cheating and stealing. Well, he says there's no doubt. Now you should trust him all of a sudden. There's no doubt that Iran was the one who attacked these oil tankers. Quote, the intelligence community has lots of data, lots of evidence. The world will come to see much of it. But the American people should rest assured we have high confidence with respect to these two with who conducted these attacks, as well as a half dozen other attacks. So don't worry about seeing the evidence yet, but just rest assured and trust us. And the UK and Saudi Arabia have backed this up. And, you can get further into the details. But here we are again. Fox News, Pompeo blames Iran for attacks, says U.S. does not want war, but will take action if needed. So the U.S. gets to play this sort of like, we're just defending ourselves. Where have we seen this before? Attacks in Gulf, I don't know, Gulf of Tonkin perhaps, in other cases. This does seem to be setting up a potential, confrontation based on what most people would probably say is a false flag. Iranians, according to CNN, fired missile at a U.S. drone prior to the tanker attack. So now more evidence that prior to taking fire, the American MQ-9 Reaper drone observed Iranian vessels closing in on the tankers, the official added, though the source did not say whether the unmanned aircraft saw the boats conducting an actual attack. So again, there are claims that And multiple claims. Even the owner of the oil tanker said he saw Iranian ships in the region. And this drone is, claiming that they witnessed Iranian ships in the area, but no attack. So that's still not evidence. Now we'll have to wait and see if the U.S. ever releases any information about it. We'll see. And in this case, from Zero Hedge, Trump says tanker attack has Iran written all over it as Tehran slams U.S. false flag. Now, of course, the Iranian mission to the United Nations says that the claims are unfounded and reckless, and he basically saying that it has a false flag operation. That's a false flag operation. Iranian officials also said that it's part of a disinformation campaign to continue maximum pressure, which aims to bring Tehran into the crosshairs of a U.S.-led war. The U.S. and its regional allies must stop warmongering and put an end to mischievous plots and false flag operations. A pretty bold statement from Iran's mission to the United States. And the statement goes on saying, warning once again about all of the U.S. coercion, intimidation, and malign behavior. Iran expresses concern over suspicious incidents for the oil tankers that occurred today. The U.S. economic war and terrorism against the Iranian people, as well as the massive military presence in the region, have been and continue to be the main sources of insecurity and stability in the wider Persian Gulf region, and the most significant threat to its peace and security. So, who's the one that has military bases all over the world and military bases surrounding Iran? Who's the one who is partnered with a nation like Israel, who is adamantly against Iranian way of life and the Iranian people? Iran's foreign minister also later described U.S. accusations as sabotage diplomacy, and he says suspicious doesn't begin to describe what likely transpired. Especially given, now here's some interesting details, that at the time of the attack, Iran's president and the Ayatollah were hosting Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe to mediate nuclear deal matters and sanctions relief at the very moment the attack took place. So why would Iran attack an oil tanker while they're meeting with the prime minister of another friendly nation to talk about nuclear deals and potential sanctions relief, to get help from them? I don't know. Doesn't make much sense to me. Things don't always have to make sense, but that's just one other area to call into question. And again, late Thursday evening, the Pentagon released a video that they claim was smoking gun evidence that Iran was returning to the crime scene. And however, a further strange and confusing bit of information has entered the mix, given that the Japanese owner of the Kakua Courageous, which the U.S. Navy said it filmed Iranian officials removing an unexploded mine, the owner of the Japanese ship says that he doesn't believe the U.S. version of events, and comments casting the entire narrative by the U.S. into doubt. The owner said he doesn't completely believe their version of events. The owner and operator of Kakua Courageous, Yutaka Kodeha, said he believes the vessel wasn't damaged by a mine, but by some kind of projectile like a torpedo. He called reports of a mine attack false. One reason is because the mine doesn't damage above sea level like what was seen in this Courageous. And you remember just the video I showed you just a moment ago, they said that the attack was at or above sea level, right? Well, this guy, the owner of the ship, is saying a mine doesn't damage a ship above sea level. We aren't sure exactly what hit it, but it was something flying towards the ship. And while the UN and other countries are calling for a multinational objective investigation, Britain is the latest to join the United States in hasty accusations. UK Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt said this is deeply worrying and comes at a time of huge tensions. And of course, Trump said Iran's written all over it, calling them a nation of terror and bluntly saying Iran did do it. And of course, we know John Bolton, the Secretary of State for Trump and for George Bush, who's been calling for war with Iran for a long time, is backing this up and saying this is it. This is what we need to go to war. And from Caitlin Johnstone, 7 reasons to be highly skeptical of the Gulf of Oman incident. Pompeo is a known liar, especially when it comes to Iran. This is what I was talking about. He admitted in this speech, telling Texas A&M University that he lied, cheated, and stole while in the CIA. Check this out.
When I was a cadet, what's the cadet motto at West Point? You will not lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those who do. I was the CIA director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. It was like we had entire training courses.
So here's a man admitting to lying, cheating, and stealing while working for the U.S. government. Reason number 2, the U.S. is known to use lies and false flags to start wars. Of course, anybody on this channel is probably well aware of that. If not, watch James Corbett's Debunking a Century of War Lies, talks about the Gulf of Tonkin as well as many other cases. And again, John Bolton has openly endorsed lying to advance military agendas. Speaking on Fox News, he said he would lie in order to preserve the, quote, truth. And he said, if I had to say something I knew was false to protect American national security, I would do it. So why should we believe him now? U.S. false flags. Using false flags to start a war with Iran is already an established idea in the D.C. think tanks. And this gives another example of the Washington Institute of Near East Policy think tank, their director of research, Patrick Clausen, talking about ways that they could foment war with Iran. And the U.S. State Department has already been running psyops to manipulate the Iran narrative. So you can go read that. And also just search for Iran and see what pops up. They're pushing it hardcore. They want people to be afraid of Iran now. They might finally be getting ready to close in on Iran after going after Afghanistan, Iraq, getting control of Pakistan, bombing in Yemen and Somalia, trying to take control of Syria. And we know they've wanted to get into Iran for a long time. The Gulf of Oman narrative makes no sense. And even if Iran did perpetrate the attack, Pompeo would still be lying. And then there's, of course, this clip here from General Wesley Clark discussing after 9/11, which most people have seen. I'm not going to play it here. Discussing going into 7 different countries. And these are the 7 countries that we've been waiting on, that we've seen the war narrative. Now, one last point I want to make to you guys is you should remember who told you this was going to happen more than a month ago. Prepare for a potential false flag to be blamed on Iran. And the reason I said this is because there was a ramping of military activity in and around Iran. And this, as I said, is a part of a larger agenda to bring Iran under Western control. Now, I wrote this article back in March 2018 that the video is based on. And Donald Trump's appointment of John Bolton means regime change is coming to Iran. So if you follow my work, if you signed up for my text list, you're going to get my articles, you're going to get my videos, and you're going to know what's coming before other channels. I feel proud, and hopefully you guys are already paying attention. But it does feel good to know that because of my research, and really I think anybody with a thinking brain can figure this stuff out. But in this article, I go through the various examples of John Bolton talking about war with Iran, and in fact, even giving a speech to the Mujahideen Khalq, or the MEK, or the People's Mujahideen, which is seen as a terrorist group to some nations and some people, where Bolton, current Trump official, he's now in the Trump administration advising Trump. This guy was speaking in 2017 and with Rudy Giuliani, making the promise that regime change was coming. He said, this is a quote from the Intercept. Just 8 months ago at a Paris gathering, Bolton told members of the Iranian exile group, the MEK, that the Trump administration should embrace their goal of immediate regime change and recognize their group as a viable alternative. And here's Bolton's exact words. The behavior and the objective of the regime are not going to change, and therefore the only solution to change is to change the regime itself, said the newly appointed National Security Advisor John Bolton. And he said, that's why before 2019, we here will celebrate in Tehran. So he basically, along with Rudy Giuliani, Trump's lawyer, went and gave a speech to the MEK, again, this group that is seen as a terrorist group, or maybe depending on your view, a rebel group in Iran, telling them that they were going to help them achieve regime change. And of course, Bolton is also a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. He's also been involved in the Project for a New American Century, which talked about the need for a new Pearl Harbor before 9/11. Many of you guys understand that. And yeah, this is just the second part of the Rebuilding America's Defenses from the Project for a New American Century, which they released in 2000. And under a section titled Creating Tomorrow's Dominant Force, they wrote the following line. Further, the process of transformation, even if it brings revolutionary change, is likely to be a long one, absent some catastrophic and catalyzing event like a new Pearl Harbor. And then we know 9/11 happened, and that gave them the excuse to invade Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, and possibly soon Iran. And yeah, this is just a continuing process. And this is what you need to be paying attention to, friends. Please share this report out there to those of your family and friends who might still be buying the mainstream line on what's happening in Iran. Because as I showed you here, it's all over the news right now. They're talking about it. There's no doubt that Iran, attacked people. But for anybody with a thinking brain and doing a little bit more research than just trusting MSNBC and CNN and Fox, you can find at least 7 reasons to be skeptical of the attack, and I'd say much more once you really dig into it and once you understand who the power players are, like John Bolton, like Pompeo, and of course Trump, who is a part of the swamp, whether you like it or not. So that's where we're going to leave it for today, guys. I want to hear your comments. I want to hear your thoughts below. Tell me if you think I'm crazy. Tell me if you have other evidence that I should look into, and we'll keep an eye on this. You guys know that I'm sort of slowing down my video output at the moment. I do have a couple more videos planned for this week, but this is something that I needed to touch on, especially because, as I said, I've talked about this, and we put a video out just a month ago telling you that this was coming. So for those who've been tuned in and paying attention, you can see through the BS. And if you're new here, well, then I recommend you to subscribe and to follow so that you can be tuned in what's coming before the other folks. And as I said, the reason I waited a few days is because so many independent, quote unquote, independent alternative media channels are in a rush to just get the latest news, just like the mainstream. They want to be the first ones to report it. I like to wait to marinate on things and to see what other pieces of the puzzle come to fruition, and that's what I've done here. So I recommend you guys check out all the links that I'll put below in the description, and until next time, remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free, my friends. Peace.